Anne-Marie Ryan. I'm in East Lansing, Michigan in the United States. I'm an organizational psychology professor at Michigan State University. When I was an undergraduate and was trying to decide what major in, I had a psychology course and I thought psychology would be interesting. But almost right away in my second psychology course, I kind of gravitated towards organizational psychology. I liked the fact that it was practical. I could envision myself doing some of the things we were reading about and hearing about in terms of helping organizations. So I decided at that point that it was definitely the way I was going to go. I did think that I would go into practice and work for a big corporation. However, when I got to graduate school, I still had that as my goal. I did internships, worked with consulting firms, did an internship with a large steel company. And then after that, kind of talking to my own faculty advisor, he suggested that maybe I would want to try to be an academic, be a professor. And I wasn't sure about that. But I did decide to try it. And if I didn't like it, I knew I could go work in industry. And I actually really loved the teaching, loved the research, and I've been doing it for quite some time. Well, I think in the selection area, some of the tried and true attributes we try and assess are still going to be the most important. I mean, we all know past behavior is really predictive of what you're going to do in the future. So things that look at your accomplishments, whether that be your bio data, resume information, also interview questions asking you about your past experiences, those are going to be helpful and valid. Also, we know for many jobs, there's certain skills and abilities you just need to have. So tools that assess those are going to be really useful. Those are areas where organizational psychology spent a lot of time and did a lot for quite a while in developing those tools. More recently, we've gotten much better at how to assess things like fit with an organization's culture. You know, is this the right place for an employee? Does their personality match the way things operate in that particular organization? Are they going to be comfortable working there? So those are some of the areas where new things are emerging. We've also gotten much better at developing simulations that are realistic. With technology, we can do a lot to pose questions, to give people examples of situations they face on the job and ask them about what they would do, or actually have them interact in a way where they can demonstrate what they would do. So technology has enabled us to do a much better job at more realistic ways of simulating what goes on in the job and giving people the real opportunity to show their capabilities. I think first, you really need to define what it is you want. Do you want an employee who's going to stay with you a long time? What kind of level of performance are you expecting? What's your goal with the selection that you're going to make? Then I think you got to really sit down and do a very good, thorough job of thinking about what job you're going to put them in, or what tasks you're going to have them perform. What is it that you're going to be asking this employee to do? Particularly if you have a small number of employees working for you, you may be expecting them to be able to do a lot. You really have to take a hard look at which things are absolute requirements, which skills do they have to have, what kinds of areas of their job is the performance really critical. So anyway, think about what's most important in terms of job requirements. If they are going to use some kind of selection tool, whether they purchase something or develop something, they really need to have some evidence to back up its validity, its usefulness. They've got to monitor how it's working and continuously look to improve the process. But even if they're just doing something like screening resumes and conducting an interview, they need to make sure they have a standard plan for how they're going to do it. So they treat every employee they interview, or every individual who applies for a job the same, so that all those people have a positive experience and you're getting the same information on all of them. Well, I think what you want to get at is making sure that, yes, I mean, big corporations might be concerned about, is this something that you could defend if there's any complaints about it? But really what you want to say is, I want to use the most effective way of hiring somebody. I want to make sure that the kinds of information I'm relying on is good information. And then I'm not simply relying on a hunch. Many managers think that their intuition is going to help them make the best choice, and that's not always the case. So coming up with a consistent process that's connected to the job still gives that manager the freedom to choose, who's going to fill the position, but they can feel confident that they haven't overlooked something, that an employee that they're potentially bringing on, they've done a really thorough job of screening them by having that information. I think people's first thought is, well, can I use the same selection process that I use in one country and other countries, or are there such strong cultural differences that it's not going to work? It's not going to give me the same validity, the same quality of employees. And the answer is you really have to investigate it. You really have to do a thorough job if you're taking something that works well in one culture to make sure that it's going to work equally well in other places. Now, for many of the tools we use in selection, there is a good possibility of doing that, but you also have to investigate how well it's going to work. So, for example, personality measures ask questions about the way you typically act. Well, in some cultures, there are some norms about the ways. In all cultures, there's norms about the ways one should interact with others that might make some responses more desirable than others. It's important to have an understanding of the cultural context as you try and pick up maybe that tool that worked really well in one place and move it to another place where some behaviors aren't as normative. It's going to make a difference in how people respond. So that's really important. The other things are, around the globe, educational systems are different. People's expectations of the level of interaction they're going to have with somebody they're hiring are different. Technology is such a big part now of screening employees, especially for big employers. But in some places, people do expect a more personal relationship and getting to know the employer as they go through the application process, and that might be really important to maintain.